Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Keep It Simple podcast. If you're catching this, you have joined us for episode 18, and today is a special day. We've got my great friend Johnny Bridges on. Johnny is a journeyman when it comes to ministry. His giftings and graces are very diverse, super gifted relationally, but also plays and loves to lead worship. He's a man of many talents. He's a mechanic, a master mechanic, and can fix just about anything. But we were talking off camera right before I hit record that in all the ages and stages of Johnny's life, he has used his gifts and graces to further the church, to encourage people, specifically youth, but all people really, and even to help outside of those places and spaces in the unchurched world, just to be real and to draw people into a relationship with himself and with God. And so it's really good to have you on the podcast. Welcome, Johnny Bridges.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. So we were talking just off camera right before we started. You and I have been together a long time. The best that I remember, the first time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, first time I ever met you was at the Gold Cup Bowling Alley on Russell. Have I got that right?
That is correct, yeah.
And Adam Sylvester, I guess, invited you to come hang out. We were doing a fun deal for youth, and Adam invited you to come, and was that 10th grade? Have I got that right?
Yes, that was 10th grade, yep.
10th grade, and so here you come into the bowling alley, and we get introduced, and what I remember that night is like, in between frames and stuff, you and I just kind of sitting at the tall top bar and benches kind of back to the back. And I knew immediately that you were different. You know, you were soft-hearted, but you just opened up and began to share. I mean, within 15 or 20 minutes of us sitting down, and I knew then that our relationship was going to be a really good one. And pretty much from that moment forward, you were in. I mean, am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I didn't really miss a Sunday at all until I graduated and moved away. I was there.
Yeah.
So Adam was my best friend growing up. Met him in middle school in 6th grade. We had band class together. I played trombone, he played saxophone, and I sat right behind him.
Okay.
And little 6th grade boys, you never know what you're going to get. So he's talking to this group of guys, and I'm just there, and I heard him talking about video games, and I kind of peeped in. I was like, what kind of games are y'all playing? And pretty much that's how it hit off, is us talking about video games, and we ended up, after that, becoming best friends, played football through middle school and high school. He's one of the biggest influences that he had on me was he kept talking about you and the youth group. Yeah. He tried to get me to go like back in 6th grade, but I just never really had time. I was playing baseball at the same time, so I couldn't figure a way around to go. But eventually 10th grade came around. Football is a Monday through Friday thing in high school, so Sundays are open. So eventually I came around. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna do this thing. And I came to the worship area. I did go one Sunday. I think you were out of town, and Mickey Meeks was leading that night. And then the next Sunday, or sometime after, I came to the bowling alley, and that's when I was introduced to you, and Adam was there. And we pretty much hit it off. I had a leg brace from my hip to my ankle, and
yes.
Trying to bowl at the same time, but just really wanted to hang out with some people and have a good time and build relationships and kind of go about it. So that that's just the short end of it, but there's probably a lot more into it that we can talk about. But
and talking about Mickey Meeks, so we got to see him the other night. I have not been able to see Mickey or Vicky since we moved away, and we were home for Charity's wedding. Got to hang out with you and so many people. It was awesome. It was beautiful to be back together, like a big family reunion, you know. But to get to see Mickey and Vicky was one of the highlights of the weekend for me, to get to sit and listen and watch and visit and catch up. And I love me some Mickey Meeks. And so for you to have been in there and met Mickey, and that's probably the best first impression of us that you could have gotten was Mickey. But so my read on, and I may be wrong, tell me if I am, please, but my read was like you didn't have a background in church per se. Did how in your childhood and kind of coming along preteen and early teenage years, were you involved in church at all?
Not really.
Okay.
My sister had a friend who went to church, and I went with her one time, and it was over Second Baptist on Moody.
Oh yeah.
And I went there. I went to Sunday school with a bunch of kids who had no idea who they were. All we did was draw a picture of Jesus on a piece of paper and color it in, and we went to the service, but I could not tell you anything what was going on, or, I just sat there and just kind of acted like a kid, messing with everything in the pews.
Yeah.
But that was my only experience, but my first true experience of like going on my own or meeting with Adam or someone was coming to the youth group that Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the beginning. I guess you want to say that was the beginning of my story right there. Yeah. Not at the Gold Cup, but the first Sunday that we had when you were there preaching, and the whole band was there. That was the beginning of it. And then from then on out, it just felt like it was just a building point and just kept growing.
Yeah.
And so many things happened, and great things, and it still continues today to who I am and where it's got me to fill in some leadership roles in different churches and lead worship and go on retreats to who knows where.
Yeah. So talking about retreats, you were saying that I guess was it the first beach trip? Did you come in the spring or fall, or I don't remember that part. What time of the year did you come? Was it football season?
Yeah, I started coming to youth. I think it was September, October of 2014.
Okay.
I started then, and then I just went along with it. And the first retreat I really went on was a ski trip, but I couldn't ski.
I remember.
My knee. I had surgery on my knee.
Say that. Yeah.
And I think after that, I can't remember if it was before or after, I went to the Super Bowl party. That's when we went to Trinity and watched the Super Bowl for like a joint thing.
Yes.
And then after all that happened is when I started getting my knee brace off and getting back in a routine of football practice and actually being able to be a part of the activities that y'all had going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the beach trip that summer was the first trip that I could go on and actually, I think we ended up playing like a full court basketball game on that trip with a lot of us, and swimming and leading worship and everything. That was the first one I was like, yeah, I'm here. I can actually do these things and have fun and not sit back. So
yes,
that was a time. That beach trip was a lot of fun. Talking about community, I don't know if you remember this or not, but you asked me to teach one of the nights on that trip too. And I remember like our whole theme was tuned in.
Yeah.
And you had 3 different topics of tuned in with God, tuned in with yourself, and the last night was tuned in with community. And you picked community for me. So that's what I've been thinking about that today. I was like, wow, if I take it all the way back to 2015, summer 2015, the community thing, that's where it all started. I didn't really know what I was talking about, because I was still new to my faith journey and understanding scripture and understanding who God was, but uh, I've learned a lot from then and built up a better understanding what it is to have a relationship with God throughout the community. So it's been a journey.
Those were cool shirts. They were hot pink, had the big boom box on the front, didn't they?
They did. Yeah.
Tune in across the front like glitter. I remember Terry Reynolds printed those tees, and he was like, "Dude, we should do the wording in glitter." And I'm like, I mean, you know me, we've been together long enough. I'm like, we're not doing glitter. And he was like, "No, it'll be cool. It'll be like black glitter. It'll be shiny. It'll be cool." And he was right. I was wrong. Those were really cool shirts, man.
They were.
Yeah. So when in there, it's interesting as I listen to people's stories. Some people have like this aha moment, right, where they meet Jesus and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is real." It's like John Wesley used the phrase a strange warming of the heart, you know, and in Aldersgate when he had kind of this aha epiphany moment. For you, was there ever a moment that you felt like the Spirit of God moved on you and you were like, "Oh my," or like so many of my friends, it's just kind of incremental. There's so many people that I talk to that their knowledge and experience and relationship with God is just kind of, there isn't that big lightning bolt moment. It's incremental along and along. What has that experience with Jesus been like for you?
I think for me, I think it was like a build up the whole time.
Okay.
So just a quick little thing about me. I've always liked music. I love music. If I'm listening to it or there's a song that I want to learn and play on guitar, I love to do it. With that, one of the very first times I came to youth, there was a full band on stage. And sorry if I'm like calling these people out, but it was Connor Henderson, Michael and Matthew Meeks, Jason Landreth, and I'm not sure if someone was playing drums, but it was like very acoustic. And I tell this to everybody of like my first like worship night, but experiencing that. But I was like one of the first songs I ever played was "King of My Heart."
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was, but it's like football. Whenever you get into a game, your adrenaline kicks in and you just feel the chills on your... I felt that night. I was like, "Oh, this music sounds so good."
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but they just sound good. I just remember that, and every time I kept coming back, I was like, I really like this music. So that's what really stuck with me for like the whole, getting into my faith. But eventually, give it a year or two, I think it was like right at the end of my junior year of spring of 2016, I really felt like God was moving in my life big time. And then I came around to it. That's when Pastor Ken Morgan was at the church, and I went up to y'all too, and I was like, "Hey, I really think I want to be baptized."
Yes.
And before you know it, I'm standing in this really cold river with you and Ken Morgan, and I'm going under. So it's just the build up, I never had one of those moments, but just gradually I was like understanding it more and more over time, and I was like, so this is who God is. That's what he does.
It's interesting that we had this interview set up and have for a few weeks, but so Ken and Abby were here Monday night.
Oh, wow.
And so Abby got accepted to this ministry school out in Denver, Colorado, and so Ken and Abby were traveling through. He's driving her out, and then Amy's going to fly out, and then Ken and Amy will fly home and leave Abby in the car out for the coming year. But it's so good to be with them. And that guy, I was telling somebody the other day, that guy's like Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you're around him, he really has played a large part in so many people's lives, in the spiritual formation of so many people's lives. And it's not by any teaching per se. It's just who he is and how he goes about his life and how his relationships, how he conducts himself with others, and just an incredibly gracious and kind human being. I know you think the world of him. Every time you could, you'd try to get, whether it was coming back to First or headed down to Springfield. I know you made some trips there to be able to worship with them, and what an incredible guy. He had a big part, a big influence on you.
Yeah, he was the very first pastor who, honestly, I've really met and built a relationship with.
Yeah.
I went to, when I went to that church with my sister way, way back in the day, I didn't even meet the pastor. I don't remember who it was or what he was even speaking on. But when I went to, went to youth first, and eventually I think you convinced me to come on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And then, that's when I met Ken Morgan, and it was something just resonated with me with it. Like, just the whole being in that sanctuary one hit me different.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is a different room. And we're doing the same thing that we do in the youth room, but instead of just kids, it's everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I was getting a grasp on that. I was like, man, this is something cool.
Yeah.
And then eventually I met Pastor Ken, and he was just a down-to-earth guy. He's like, what's up, man? How you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, you're cool.
He
as
is,
a high school kid, he's someone you can easily build a relationship with and tell stories and live to tell people later on about it. Like, yeah, my pastor, he's a cool guy. And let me tell you about him real quick.
Were you on the trip the year we went up on the roof at Hinton? Were you on that trip?
I wasn't. I don't think I was in youth yet.
That guy, man.
Yeah, no.
That's when Ken Morgan won. We need to have Ken on here. That's when Ken Morgan won me over, man. So we were at Hinton. We had a big group there that year. I don't remember, but we had a bunch of youngins on that trip. And we were out in the chapel, for whatever the nighttime session. Yeah. And it was one of the later night sessions, and it gets over, and everybody's walking out of the chapel, and these other groups are going, and they're going to do whatever they're doing. And our group kind of walks out. And just happened to look up, and there was not a cloud in the sky. I mean, it was just as clear a night, and you could see, it felt like the stars were right upon you, like right on you. And so I'm standing there. I'm not paying attention to who's around me. I'm kind of looking at the sky, and just out loud, I said, you know what, it would be so cool if we could get up on the roof, because the More Great Hall, is that big, tall, pitched roof, and I'm like, it would be so cool if we could get on that roof and just lay there and watch the stars. And I hear this voice say, let's do it. And I look over, and it's Ken, and I'm like, I don't even think he got the T of let's do it out of his mouth, and I was gone to the tool shed to get extension ladders. And so we, one by one, he went up, and I stood at the bottom and held the ladder, and we were sending youngins up that ladder, and he was helping them get up, and I don't know that story's ever been told, but and certainly nobody from Hinton knew that we were all, there was a pile of us on that roof. And we laid up there on that roof for a long time watching stars and shooting stars. But that was my kind of orientation to Ken, and that's when I knew, like, we're gonna get along really, really well,
Oh yeah. Yeah, Hinton's a beautiful place. I didn't get to go on that trip, but I ended up going on a mystery fall retreat my junior year with y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my second year. I went back to football, and my knee, I ended up tweaking it a little bit again, so I missed a whole another season.
Yeah. So
I don't know if I ever told you this, but I never told my coach, Coach Way. I just missed a week of football practice and came on a youth trip with y'all, and I went out there and did all the stuff that we did and came back. And I remember Monday, school, because it was fall break or something.
Yeah.
I went to school on Monday, and I went to weightlifting that Monday, and Coach Way, I'm sitting there working out, and he come up to me, and he was like, "So, where were you last week?" I was like, oh, I had therapy. I told him that. I was like, I had therapy every day at 8 o'clock in the morning. He's like, you tell Travis? And Travis was my athletic trainer. I was like, yes, sir. Okay. Well, let me know next time. I was like, yes, sir, I will. And he just walked off, and I'm just like, oh, I'm out of there. But that first hitting, when I went there with you on a fall retreat, the mystery fall retreat, that was, I guess that was the first crazy trip I went on, because I have shared a room with like Parker Pellin and Chris Morgan and a lot of the other people. I think Steven Landreth was in there, and that's when I really got a good whiff of the youth group on a retreat where there was no chaperone in the room. That was a fun time.
That was one thing, and Mindy and I were talking about this last week, I think it was. Man, we did everything full send. Like we worked hard, we played hard, we worshiped hard. We did, I mean, everything that we did as a group, our culture was like full bore, pedal to the metal, you know, and I think that was one reason why our group was attractive to some non-believers or some teenagers that were maybe unsure about church. And if we could get them to travel with us, or if we could get them to come to like a bowling night or a movie night on the lawn or something fun, and they could slip and slide kickball, if we could just get some FaceTime with them and interact with them, and they're like, these people are, I mean, they're fun, they're regular people, they just happen to love this guy named Jesus, you know. And so that fall retreat to Hinton, so was that the year? So if I remember correctly, we didn't go to Hinton for summer missions because we were saving money, because the next year we were going to Nicaragua. Does that sound right?
Yep.
That's what I was thinking. Did you go to Nicaragua?
I did.
Yeah.
That was my first mission trip with y'all.
Yeah.
That was also the first time I flew on a plane.
I did not know that. Or if I did, I had forgotten it.
I held in my nerves because, fun fact, I'm afraid of heights.
Yeah.
So whenever we got on the bus and from Warner Robins and left to go up to Atlanta, you know, we had about an hour, 2 hours before we had to board the plane, and I'm sitting there listening to my music, and Steven was listening to his music, and he was the only one that knew, and I told him, dude, I'm not really looking forward to this flight. I was like, I've never been on a plane before, but this is going to be something new. So we get on the plane, and you know, we load up, and luckily, I don't know how it happened, but every single ticket I had was a window seat.
Oh, wow.
And I remember we get on that plane. We're about to leave from Atlanta to go to Houston because we had a layover flight.
Yeah.
I was sitting in one seat. Mickey was in front of, Steven was in front of me. Then Mickey Meeks was in front of Steven. You know, Steven likes to joke around. So we're sitting there. We back up. We take off. And I'm like hanging on. I'm like, I really hope we get there. You know, because my mind is going crazy. And we get up, and I guess we're like right at the altitude to like just coast, and Steven turns around and looks at me, and one of the flaps on the wing pops up, like whatever. He's like, "Hey Johnny." It's like, "What's up?" He's like, "That's not supposed to do that." It freaked me out. I was about to lose it. I was like, "You better stop." But no, we went to Houston, had a 4-hour layover, something like that.
Yeah.
And then flew from Houston to Managua, and that was a little rough landing getting there. But we got there, got all our stuff, and went to the guy's house to stay the night. I just remember getting there, and I'm just like, man, you're safe.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like we woke up the next morning running full speed.
Yeah.
And, it was definitely, that trip was definitely eye-opener for one, but two, just to be able to experience what we did was, it'll change you. you know?
Yeah.
I really, I played soccer a little bit, so I knew how to speak a little bit of Spanish. So I started playing soccer with those kids, and they were like yelling at me. I was like, oh, I know what you're saying. Pass me the ball. So here you go. So that was a lot of fun. And then, of course, doing all the labor that we did too, building that driveway and I guess they were building a chapel too.
Yeah. We were doing all the equivalent of like drywall and putting up the aluminum, because they don't use any wood, right? All their construction's out of aluminum, so all the studs we were having to cut, and that dang driveway, dude, laying those pavers. And we were like, for you that are listening or watching, we were like, so this little school, or it's not little, the school is on the Pan American Highway. Like, it literally is on the Pan American Highway that's like 6 lanes or whatever right there, or what, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And it is crazy town. There's cars and trucks and motorcycles, and they really did not have much value for life. And we're down there on our hands and knees trying to lay these pavers, man, and they're just zip, 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 zip. And I'm thinking, we have teenagers out here, so I'm trying to figure out how to keep kids back off the road. That was quite the trip. It was like herding cats, because we took, I don't remember, 30 or so people.
Yeah.
And trying to keep everybody together through customs and through airports and through all the things. It was, the travel piece was stressful, but while we were there, it was fun. Henry's house was so cool. Food was delicious. Worship was good. The work was very meaningful. We got to swim in an extinct volcano.
Yes, we did.
To this day, there's a lot of people that don't believe me when I'm telling them that. They're like, what's the coolest thing? You did youth work for a lot of years. What's the coolest thing you ever did? I'm like, well, there's a lot. But one of the coolest things is we got to swim in an extinct volcano. And they're like, yeah, right.
Yeah, that's I use that whenever doing icebreakers, the 2 truths and a lie.
Yeah.
I always add it in there. And they're like, oh, you never swam in a volcano before? And I was like, let me find this picture for you real quick.
Actually, I have. Yeah.
I was like, I have. And that water was warm, too.
Yeah.
But that was like, 2 mile? It was like a whole 2 mile, like, radius.
Yes.
All the way around. And there was fish in there. And there was like a floating dock in the middle and kayaks. And we also ate lunch there, too. There was that little stray cat that kept coming over to us.
Yeah.
But, that was definitely, going to that lagoon was one of the coolest things. And then, was it before or after that we went to that little flea market?
It was after, on the way back. Yeah. So we went and ate, we did lunch and swam and had a day off, and then on the way back through, we stopped at the market.
Yep. And I remember you telling us too, before we got off the bus, like, hey, there's going to be people coming up to you. Like, hey, come this way. We got something for you. Don't follow them.
Don't go with them.
I had so many people come up to me like, oh, you like those glasses? I got cheaper ones over here. And I'm like, oh, is that right? I like these, though. That was something.
Yeah, so youth was formational, and the relationships and all were there. So then you graduate high school, and what, you didn't immediately go to Southern. What did you do, like, right after high school? Did you go into the space between, or help me remember that? Did you do GMC, or what did you do?
So I did go to Southern right after high school.
Oh,
but
did
the thing
you?
Was,
okay.
It was actually a process. So that summer, I graduated, and then we went to Hinton that summer. And at this point, I have not received any mail. I have not received a phone call or emails, whatever, saying I've been accepted and whatnot. So my initial plan was, I guess I'm just going to work at the car shop with my granddad and just continue to do that. But then one of the days it was raining. Our site got, I don't want to say it's flooded, but we had a lot of electrical tools. So we pretty much cleaned up and kept everything inside, and we were going to come back the next day. And Caroline's dad was my leader in my group, so we went back to and his wife too, both of them, Mr. and Mrs. Freeman. Yeah. We went back to went back to Hinton, and as soon as I get in there, I had a missed call from a area, like a number I didn't have saved. And so I just like, I have a missed call, I have a voicemail, and I pop open the voicemail. This is like middle to late June, maybe early July. I can't really remember when we went, but
June is Father's Day.
That's right. But I had a voicemail from Georgia Southern saying I've been accepted. And I was like, wait, what? So I listened to it, and then I called the guy back, and I remember his name was Evan. So I called Evan, and he's like, hello? I was like, hey, Evan, this is Johnny. He's like, oh, hey, Johnny, congratulations. I'm like, thanks. When did this come about? I just received this. He's like, oh, we sent the thing today to you. So I talked to him for a minute. He's like, so this is what's going to happen. And I told him, I was like, I'm on a mission trip right now in a whole other state. Can I call you back when I get home? He's like, yeah. So I hung up the phone, and then I called my grandpa. So I called him, and I was like, hey, you're not going to believe this. And he was like, what? I was like, I just got accepted to Georgia Southern, literally like a month and a half before school starts. He's like, oh, I know. I was like, how do you know? And he's like, you got something in the mail today that says congratulations, and it has Georgia Southern Eagles on it. I was like, did you open my mail? And he's like, yeah, I opened your mail. So from that's when I got accepted. But I was like, man, I was super excited. And honestly, that was one of my like first moments of really believing that God was there for me. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't, I was still in the phase of doing, believing and getting into it. I was a believer. I was still just trying to get into the routine of being, present with it. And then whenever I got accepted, I was like, this is real. Because I learned how to, I started praying on my own and doing these things. And one of the things I prayed about was like, God, what do you want from me? Do you want me to go to school? Do you want me to go work at a shop? Like, what's the plan? And then finally one day I got that phone call, and I got accepted. So that's when I moved away. I moved to Statesboro, Georgia for Georgia Southern. I just did, at first I was a mechanical engineer major, but I don't want to say it wasn't hard at all. It was really easy, but I'm not a person to sit behind a computer all day or design things. I'm the type of guy that's like, you design it, I'll put it together. And I just like to get my hands dirty. So I kind of stepped away from that. I did that. Well, I did change my major in between all that just to general studies or interdisciplinary studies. But I just couldn't really find my itch of like school. Like, do I just stay here? Like, what do I do? When I did go to Space Between a little bit before I did move away, and that's when I really, got connected with the older folks that came through the youth program before I was there, like Connor, and that's when I met Brooke officially. We had youth things together, and a couple of like Charity Lucas and all those people. But that was a fun time. And then I was like, oh, this is the adult version of you. And then I had to move away, so I was like, man. And I remember you telling me or not just me, but the whole youth group before we left, that find a church, find a campus ministry, find something to get plugged into. If not, just find that community of friends that you can stick with. And that's where I struggled at. So when I moved away, I just, I want to say I'm really an introvert when I'm around a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So when I moved, I didn't know anybody. But I got there, moved in, and I just kind of stayed in my room, went to class, went back, and then finally, Adam Sylvester, of course, his cousin went there, and I know her. So she reached out to me and was like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm just hanging out in my room. Mm-hmm. So she came and got me on a Wednesday night. She had like a boyfriend or something. She came and picked me up, and they took me to the Wesley Foundation.
Oh,
just out
wow.
of the blue. Yeah, and you know me, I'm always a person to sit in the back. You know, I just like to show up, sit in the back, and just get a feel for the room. And
Yeah.
no, we're front row in the whole room. There was 200 and something college students in there, and she put me on the front row. I
Amen,
was
man.
like, so you know, I guess I hit the ground running when she came and picked me up. But
Yeah.
that was the that was October. That was about October, my freshman year, first semester, fall semester. Um, and I guess after that, you know, she brought me the first time, and I did the whole thing, and met a couple of people, and I left. And week after that comes around, and I texted her, and I was like, "Hey, are y'all going again?" And she was like, "No, we can't go, but I think you should go." I was like, "I don't really want to go by myself." So I ended up going, you know, and this time I got to sit in the back, you know, and I sat in the very last row. And then I found out that some people in my hometown went to Georgia Southern and also went to Wesley. Alex Simonton,
Oh,
she was
yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and she came up. She's like, "Hey, you go to Space Between?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Hey, what's up? I'm Alex." And I finally met her, and I was like, "We've lived in the same town for how long? And now I'll meet you in a way in a different town and all these things." So like, it was cool to meet up with someone from Warner Robins
Yeah.
and get to see her. But she was like a photographer for the Wesley Foundation show. She was bouncing around and doing stuff. So
She's
we walked
amazing.
in.
We got to get her on the show, too. I need to have
Oh,
her
yeah.
on. She's amazing, man.
Oh yeah, I got to see her at the wedding too, but she did recently. You know, the last youth trip I went on down to St. Simon, she was our guest speaker.
Okay.
Brooke brought her along. But yeah, she was a part of Wesley, but I sat in the back, and these random guys came up and sat with me, and that night they were handing out brochures, and this is what really got me hooked in coming to Wesley more often. Was they had a fall retreat coming up on a weekend, and it was like, "Coming to a fall retreat, da 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 da," and at the bottom it said "Hit and Roll Life Center." I was like, "You got to be kidding me!"
Wow.
So
I
my
never
first
knew
trip,
that.
yeah, we went to Hinton, and um, we went to Hinton, and I got to stay in the same place that we stayed in youth, and
Yeah.
got to go to Fires Creek and go down to the lake, and
Did y'all go to Chicken Pens?
oh yeah,
Did you?
I got my red velvet Oreo milkshake.
Yes, yes.
That's it right there.
You know what? It's funny to back it up a little bit. You were talking about Alan and Angela Freeman, and you were on a work site with them. So I don't know if you knew this or not, but Angela was my youth pastor.
I did not know that.
So when I was in high school, Angela Freeman, she was Angela Puckett then, she was my youth pastor, and she took us to Hinton. So some of my most memorable summers were spent as a student at Hinton, and there's friends that I made in those years that I'm still friends with now from different states and different groups. So it's super cool. You're talking about being back at Hinton, being on a work team, and you had Alan and Angela as your adult, volunteers, supervisors, and that's kind of a full circle moment. We got to get CB on here too. There's just a list of people that we got to get on here. But so you all took your first fall retreat. What a piece of confirmation, man!
I know. It was definitely it was definitely to me a God moment of just him showing me that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Taking me back to a place where, I don't have much experience of, I went on one mission trip and one mystery fall retreat there. I didn't get to go on a lot of other ones, but since I went there with you multiple times and get to go back again as just a student in college now for a college retreat, it was like just a reaffirmation of, even though you're away, I'm still here with you.
Amen.
No matter where you go. So I took that very to heart. I was like, wow, it's really cool just to go back to a place that you've been to before, but with a different group, and just remember the times when you're a kid, now you're an adult, and just to see the difference of where you are in life. it was a fun trip. And worship there again. It was actually the beginning. I didn't lead worship, but it was the beginning of me getting into leading worship because I told someone I played guitar, and they wanted me to get into it. So that's how that all started. And then
So was it through?
back,
I know that you did a lot of. It was in that time frame, and help me just timeline wise. I know that you did some youth type work at Brooklet. I know that you did. Was it Statesboro first? There was another church somewhere down there that you were kind of working at. Pittman Park. Did you do some youth work down around Valdosta at some point, or have I got that wrong?
No.
Okay.
That was not me.
So you were Brooklet, Pittman Park, and then since you've been back in Middle Georgia, have helped with Perry and now at Trinity. So I mean, that's I know those dang thumbs up bubbles, man. They get me every episode. Gabe texted me and told me how to turn them off. I just hadn't done it yet.
Yeah.
I'll get around to it. But so I know that you've been a bit of a journeyman in like giving back, like full circle moments, coming back in to pour back into the lives of teenagers and spiritual formation and helping lead worship and chaperoning literally all over the southeastern United States. So did that start like in those Georgia Southern years, or talk us through that a little bit, that part of your story?
So the first church I went to was Pittman Park United Methodist, and that's where Pastor Bill Bagwell. He was at Trinity in Warner Robins, and then he moved down to Statesboro.
Yes.
So I met him down there, and it was just a big circle right there itself of just like connecting again. So
yes,
just to be able to connect with him with familiar names and places we've been was pretty cool at the same time. So he introduced me to the youth director at his church. His name was Jared. And so I ended up talking to him. And, I always remember, like, your rule that you had of just, like, being 5 years older. But at this time, I think I was like 19 or 20 years old. He's like, hey, man, I got some young guys who probably love to talk to you. I was like, well, I can come hang out on a Wednesday or Sunday night if you really want me to. And he's like, yeah, how about you come this Sunday night? And that pretty much hit it off right there. I met a couple of kids, some boys who either played baseball or football. And they were asking me, I connected to them through sports. And after that, they ended up following me. I got their phone numbers, and we had a little, small group. Just me and a couple of the boys, and I never went personal with them at all. But I was like, "Hey, I'm just here if you need to talk. If you got something going on, I'm all ears for you." And it just led to the beginning of filling the leadership role at the church. The beginning for me, really. Pittman Park was the first one. I still have connections with those kids today from there.
Awesome, dude.
One of them is coaching at a private school now, football. He loves football, and he has a little brother who's still in high school. Another one's still at Georgia Southern, doing schooling, and another one is like not an athletic trainer, but he's like the equipment manager for the Georgia Southern football team.
Wow.
And he gets to go on all the trips, so I get to see him post on like Instagram or Facebook to see him traveling. So he's living the life, going to these D1 schools and stuff. But I still connect with them. And then, I was there for a while, and then the church there was great. I just really felt being with Pastor Bill was great, just to have some similar connections and stuff. But I enjoyed helping with youth, but I couldn't really connect well with the congregation there. I just felt like I was out of it. I guess this was my beginning stages of, all right, look, now it's time to find a church home.
Yeah.
And I went to different churches. I went to like Compassion and Connection, and I went to Statesboro first, which is where I ended up like meeting my college best friend. And And eventually it led me down to Brooklet. And if y'all don't know where Brooklet is, there's one street light, and it just blinks at you. That's about it. If you blink, you'll miss the town. But they had a Brooklet United Methodist Church was there, and I ended up living there for a whole year, and I loved every bit of it. But the pastor there is Pastor Chip Strickland. He's still there today. And, I recently, not too long ago, went down to Statesboro in like October and stopped in Brooklet to see him and catch up with him and his wife, and some of the congregation people were there, and I'm like, oh my God, Johnny's here. Like, it's been 2 or 3 years since I've stepped foot in that church. So they were like, I ended up hanging out with them before I went down to Savannah. But I ended up, this was, when I started going to Brooklet, it was probably 2018, probably 2018, 2019. And I ended up helping with youth there as well. And I've been around a lot of boys. That church knows they have a lot of little farm country boys, and they think they're all big and bad and tough until you start messing around, and then they're funny little kids.
Yeah.
But I went on some. That was the first church I actually went on to chaperoning trips on. I went to Passion, took with the youth director there. Took some kids to Passion, some seniors. Went down to Tybee. We led worship on the Tybee Pier.
Sweet.
One time.
Yeah.
It's freezing cold, but we did
it. Oh,
no. And then we got in the water after. We've done a couple other things, like in-town give-backs. Had little parties and stuff. But, those are the two churches I really, in Statesboro and Brooklet, were like the two churches I really was connected with the most.
Yeah.
And then, of course, not just youth, but I did chaperone confirmation while I was down there for, found out that Pittman and Brooklet both ended up doing a joint confirmation retreat. So we took both of those kids together down to St. Simon's for, yeah. That was my first time ever going to confirmation.
Confirmation retreat is a whole nother beast, dude. That the first year Tracy Landreth asked me to go and help her with confirmation retreat, I had led a blue billion youth retreats. I don't even know how many in college retreats, and Trace is like, hey, these fifth graders, they're going to be coming up to you, in the fall. Why don't you chaperone this confirmation retreat with me? I'm like, sure, where are we going? And going to Epworth. I was not ready. I was not ready for the fifth graders. I was not even close to ready for the fifth graders. Yeah, man. So then you finish up at Southern, and then you come back to Middle Georgia. Where you, have I got it right, you were helping and volunteering at Perry with their youth for a while?
Yes, so when I moved on, the youth director there, I had really strong connections with her, and she found out that I moved home, and she was really just looking for another person to come chaperone, because Perry, they got one of the biggest youth groups I've ever seen. Yeah. I mean, they run youth on Wednesday nights. It's a lot of private school kids and a couple from some other high schools. But my first night, she was like, yeah, you should come hang out with us. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come do it. There was 70 or 80 kids in that room, just 6th through 12th grade. I'm like, how do you have all these kids? And she was like, well, everyone's just friends in here, so they just keep coming back. And it just blew my mind. And then after the first night, she was like, you have a job? I was like, no, I just moved home. You want to be my intern? I was like, what? So I ended up interning with her for the whole summer. And I guess besides chaperoning or, filling a leadership role somewhere, being an intern was definitely, I guess, getting my feet wet in the ministry.
Yeah.
Had to attend the meetings, the staff meetings, discuss the trips, budgeting, I mean, all the things a youth director would do, pretty much.
Yeah.
That was definitely an experience for one, but two, I don't know how you did it
Yeah.
for so long.
Yeah.
But it was.
It's a
that
calling,
was a
man.
fun
You got to
summer.
be called to
Yeah.
student ministry.
Yeah.
It's certainly not for everybody, but it is so, like you or I can make a whole list of people, but I won't. But when you see lives change, when you see Jesus become real to people, not just kind of head knowledge or theology, but like when the light bulb comes on, and you see these relationships, just like you're talking about the middle schoolers at Brooklet, that you're still in relationship all these years later. You know, that I never would have guessed that in this season of my life, it would be as rewarding. It's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving. So it was great then, seeing kiddos be set free, seeing authentic community, seeing all the things. But then even now, to watch you all as adults and to still be in deep connection, to see what your lives are producing, to see who you are and how you are and where you are. And but the torch has been passed, so I'm no longer the elder statesman when it comes to longevity in Houston County Student Ministry. Brooke Kitchens has that mantle now.
Oh, yeah.
So she is right at that threshold of where I kind of rotated out and went on into pastoral, kind of lead pastoral ministry. But certainly there are ties that bind relationally all through there. And it's really, really cool when we can all go our separate ways and do our own things and live our lives, but then you put everybody back together.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like we've been together. It's like we were together a week before or 2 weeks before. You know, it's like I was trying to explain to Ken the other night when he and Abby and I were visiting. It's like putting on your favorite pair of shoes. You know, just the old worn out ones, the old ones that like your wife gets on to you if you try to wear them in public. But when you slide your foot in there, it's like the footbed is molded to your foot. Like they are the most comfortable shoes. That's what those relationships are like for me, and it's very, very rewarding all these years later to still be in relationship with so many of y'all and to keep up with you and cheer you on. And it's a great compliment. I mean, there's times where great things happen to you and you call me or text me, and there's times where hard things happen to you and you call me or text me, and it's just an incredible compliment, you know, all these years later to still have those relationships in place. So after Perry, then you landed at Trinity.
Yep.
Yeah. So back to Bill Bagwell. You talk about cycles and relationships. Bill Bagwell is the one that hired Brooke at Trinity.
Yep.
Yeah. So if not for Bill and Jay Tucker, who officiated Charity's wedding the other night, you know, Jay told Bill about Brooke, and so many connections there. But for those people who are listening to this that aren't from South Georgia, it's not all, you know, people on top of people. These are folks that are spread out throughout the state. I guess we should say, a lot of times when people think about South Georgia and Alabama and places like that, they think that it's like, you know, people on top of people, but it's not that way at all. Just God working through relationships and connectional ministry, you know.
Yeah.
So what are you doing at Trinity? I know that you're leading worship.
I help Brooke out. Let's just put it that way. If she needs me, I'm there.
Yeah.
No, but I lead worship there every Sunday. I play guitar there. Sometimes I play piano. Angela, who is, I feel like her title changes every day, but I call her like our family connectional director or something like that. But when I left Perry and came to Trinity, Brooke invited me to come lead worship, and then it ended up to them starting a whole like internship. I was there, and then Jeremy was the other intern. So that's how me and Jeremy got connected. Well, besides space between me and him, started working together, and he was helping
Yeah.
with Brooke. But yeah, so I help Sunday nights with youth. Before where I got the job at now, I used to help with the food pantry on Wednesday mornings. Wednesday night supper, I was there. I still do that, helping with small groups or whatever we have planned for the night. Space Between is now at Trinity on Thursday nights.
Yeah.
I'm there. I lead worship there sometimes. Sometimes someone else will do it. So Pastor Jeff is there. He's our pastor there now.
I love that dude, man.
Yeah, he's cool. He's a cool guy. They have a basketball gym. You know, it's like the old carpet floor basketball style gym. But one day we had a basketball tournament there, and I was like, man, it'd be really cool to have my friends here to play basketball. So over time, I finally went up to Pastor Jeff, and I was like, hey, can I use the basketball gym on Monday nights with my friends? He was like, sure. So I started bringing in my friend Wesley and some of the crew I grew up with. Would have, at first we played full court, and then we dyed it down to half court because we use the gym for a service now. So we run like 3-on-3 and 4-on-4s, and we've been doing that for over a year now. And
wow.
Pastor Jeff calls it my basketball ministry because
I was fixing to say that is ministry, dude.
I'll get in there playing, and we'll play. We'll meet at 6:00, and sometimes we'll play to 7. Sometimes we'll play to 7:30. And take it back this past Monday, even though the college football championship was on, we played till 9:00 from 6 to 9. We just and at the end of it was where I feel like the ministry part comes into it is we get to sit down and fellowship and share what our weeks look like. And some people who haven't been there in a couple of Mondays, they'll talk about their whole month. And, you know, sometimes the news is great, sometimes the news isn't so great. And it's our time to be together and just support each other and just have, you know, like, hey, man, I'm here for you. What you got? You know? And honestly, I think that's one of the coolest things that I've done starting. Like, I don't want to claim it because the idea honestly came from Wesley.
Okay.
He's like, hey, do you think your church can open the gym for us? And then, you know, the rest is history. You know, we
dude has been so faithful in your life, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, from the time you were just a little boy.
Yeah.
He's been so faithful. He's been a very constant thread through all the ages and stages of your life, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah. We have a 6-year age difference. I was 2 years old when I met him, and he was 8.
Yeah.
That's how that happened.
Yeah.
I tell my friends how that started is when I was 2 and I couldn't really run around or something. I used to stare at him through my front door because he was playing basketball on the street. And then as I became, he would come over from time to time. But as soon as I got old enough to go outside, I mean, that bond just started, and it just grew, and we still hang out today.
Yeah, you were telling me, I mean, going back to that Gold Cup the first night, you were telling me about Wesley then.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you were sharing with me some things about your family and that type of stuff, but then you came around to Wesley and you started to tell me about Wesley, and that guy has been such a faithful role model, such a solid person in your life for so long. That's awesome that y'all are still together, still friends.
Oh, yeah. Fun fact about Wesley, whenever I started coming to youth in the beginning stages, you know, my junior year or sophomore year, and I started going about, you know, youth and you listen to you about your teachings. Wesley was, I didn't know how to pray. So Wesley and I were standing in my front yard one night after playing some basketball on the street. And I asked him, I was like, dude, how do you pray? And he taught me how to pray in my front yard.
Amen, man.
After that was, you know, I didn't know if he, it was just a random question I had. I didn't know if he went to church or not, but him and his family used to go to church, and he was like, this is what I say. And it was like, dear God, just thank you for today, and thank you for the ability to wake up for another day to serve you. And after that, he was like, you just say whatever comes to your heart. And then he said amen. And I was like, okay. And he said a prayer for me too right after that, because we're about to go to bed. And that was the first time, like, I knew Wesley my whole life, but I didn't know anything about his faith life until that night. And then a year ago, Thanksgiving of 2022, actually he came to Trinity, and we had a Friendsgiving service. I didn't tell him anything about it, but I was like, hey, you should come to church. And we had a speaker panel where we had 3 friend groups, and like Charity and Brooke was one friend group, 2 of the youth kids were another, and then Wesley had no idea what he's getting into.
Oh no, you set that man up.
Let me tell you, he spoke more than I did.
Really?
He was all into it. We had, the show Friends.
Yeah,
we had sweatshirts that matched, and we stood in front of everybody, and we spoke. And
that's gold, dude.
Yeah, he came to my church and spoke. That was one of the coolest experiences I ever had, like memories with him. And that, like, everyone was like, "So this is your best friend, Wesley? You talk about?" I was like, "This is Wesley.
He actually exists.
He's here. He's alive."
So I had seen pictures of him, like you had shared and posted and stuff. And years ago, I don't even know how many years ago now, we bought a camper. Stacy and I bought a camper for our family, and we banked at Robbins Federal. And so I got all the information from wherever I bought it, and instead of doing financing through the camper place, I would prefer to do it through our bank. And so I went in and sat down. Well, Wesley was a loan officer, and I remember seeing his pictures, like you had shown me things y'all were doing or posts or stuff. But I sat down and I'm like, I know this dude. I don't even know where I know this dude, but I know this dude. Like I should know him. And about halfway through our interaction, I glanced down and he had like a business card holder on his desk, and I saw his name. And I was like, dude, you're Wesley. And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm Ben Lee. And we had a good laugh about that, I
remember that. Yeah, you sent me a picture.
Yeah, I did. I sent you a picture. I was like, I know this is weird. Can we take a picture together? I want to send Johnny. And he was like, that's fine. I don't know that he knew what to make. So you're doing all of that at Trinity, but then you're also like the plant manager. You're the head maintenance person. So a few weeks ago, I don't know, it all runs. The other day ago, Charity was on the podcast, and we talked about the Brookdale Warming Center, or it's not that anymore, Brookdale Resource Center. And so now another connection, another kind of full circle deal. So you're working full time at Brookdale as the plant manager, kind of facilities manager. What is that work like? What has your experience in church work? How does that benefit you? Your educational experience in mechanics, your spiritual experience as far as mission trips, like how incrementally through different seasons of life has God equipped you to be able to work and serve and love people day in, day out at Brookdale?
So one, Charity, I got to give thanks to her for the opportunity. She called me up about this position available, and she knew that I was looking for a job. So I sent in my resume, and a couple of days later, I was in the office with her and the director, and I had a job,
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool, and I really thank her for that all the time. But I'm head of maintenance, and I'm also the manager of all custodian works.
Okay.
So for the maintenance side of it, I oversee the whole building, as every maintenance thing that there is. I try to fix it. I try to figure out how to do things, or if I can't, I'll call somebody. But some of the basic things that I do is change a light bulb, change a filter and like the AC or something. All the small things, all the way up to a water heater.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, why? Let's figure it out because we need hot water.
Yeah.
So that's been an experience itself because I do have a background in some of the things of just being a handyman because I've been around, with my family of how we grew up. We always learn how to fix it ourselves. So when I went in, I was like, oh, I know how to do that. Yeah, I can do that. Or plumbing, I had a little bit of experience in, but now I feel like I could be a master plumber on fixing a toilet.
Yeah.
I've had so many toilets mess up on me, and I can just break it all the way down, replace the parts, put it back together, and it's working. So I've learned a lot about all that. Now, being a manager, I've never held this position before, so I was like, what do I do? So I've had, conversations with Charity a couple of times just to like, so what do I say? What do I do? I never told anyone what to do as me being someone in charge of this area. No, like being a leader of youth, leading a group like that's one thing, but when someone calls me like, hey, I'm sick, it's a different story. Or, hey, I'm not going to be at work today, something came up, like they called me, I'm like, okay, that's fine, I'll cover you, That's also something new that I can put on my resume that I'm gaining experience in, and I can carry it with me. But it's definitely been an eye-opener because, one, it's a warming center, and we house a lot of residents who are experiencing homelessness. And throughout my day, I don't really do a lot of the office paperwork, all that stuff. I don't do that, but I do get to walk around and build those relationships with the residents. And it can go from me doing my business, and then you just see a family walking down the hall, and you just talk to them for a few minutes, and you just walk away, and it's like, man, I really wish I could just help them. I keep telling some of my friends, it's like, if I win the lottery, I want to buy them a house or something, just to help them out. But it's definitely an eye-opener job. Some days are easier than others. I have gotten my hands on a couple of like doing some project stuff. Recently, I've been renovating the playground at Brookdale for the kiddos.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's been cold, so I really haven't been wanting to go outside. But I've been spray painting some of the railings because it's been rusty, so they're all turning black now. I've been pressure washing some of the walkways to make things look, pretty again.
Yeah.
I got a truck bed full of mulch delivered and spread it all through the playground instead of having just dirt. Now they have like mulch on the ground.
Sweet.
I bought a shed. I haven't put it up yet, but I have a shed that's going to store all the toys for the kids to play, or even adults too. There's cornhole. There's a bing bag, tic-tac-toe, all sorts of games that I have for them. So you might catch me out there playing with them. You never know.
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely a cool little job. I do enjoy it. It's always fun to work with people that I get to. Charity's a cool person. I love her. She's an amazing person, and I'm just thankful to be a part of what's going on in Brookdale with her. So excited. I'm really excited to see where this place takes off and just grow.
Yeah, each time I'm there, I've only been there twice, but each time I'm there, there's change, doing more, and change.
Yep.
And is Oksana there with y'all too?
Yeah, Oksana's there. She's one of the client service specialists.
Okay, so another space between her.
Yep.
That's
she
sweet, man.
used to be the youth director at Christ before she came over. So a little ministry background in her. So she is a loving person, and she has a strong heart. So it's fun to watch her work here too and build those relationships as well.
And she's always, I don't know her well because she has no clue who I am because I was gone when she came around, but I've interacted with her here or there, just like hello, or I've never really sat and engaged her in conversation. But her countenance, she has such a bright spirit. Like,
Yes.
you know, when I see her, she's always smiling. She just seems like a genuinely kind, sweet-hearted human, you know.
Yeah. So we have staff meetings in the morning, and I'm calling her out on this, but after our staff meetings, our director will look at her and be like, Oksana, what's today? And Oksana always says, today's the best day ever.
Best day ever.
We wake in God's glory. We wake up, you know, and it's the best day. Every morning she says that, so it's pretty cool. She does it every morning.
Yeah. That's awesome that y'all are there together. It's great that Charity has you and Oksana there on her team. Again, relationships, man, authentic community and the ties that bind. You just never know. So, you know, from this, hey, thank you for sharing so much of your story. But, you know, I'm starting to do a little youth work here in our church now, and we've got an incredible team of volunteers. But we're always telling our young people, like, be intentional to invite, just like we did with y'all. And adults are the same way. People who listen to this, it is nerve-wracking to invite folks to come along to a worship or to come to some other event, extracurricular event, a family fun day, a give back day, and you may be told no. You may be told no repeatedly, but then you never know when that one ask, somebody may say yes. And next thing you know, as a ministry leader, you look up and a Johnny Bridges walks through the door, you know, and that it's from Adam's obedience and continuing to ask and continue, you know, to ask, no, I can't, I'm busy. I ask, no, I can't. But then eventually there's a yes. And that yes changes things. It kind of shifts people's stories and begins to connect relationally, build connections that literally can last your lifetime, you know?
Yep. I know. I'll share this quick little story that I have about that, actually.
Yeah.
So I met a friend when I was in college. He lives in North Carolina. Well, he lives in Washington, D.C., but he lived in North Carolina. And he grew up going to church, and his family like split apart. He stopped going, and he lives with his aunt or his grandma. I couldn't tell you, but I still talk to him today. But when I first met him, you know, I'll talk to him, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing Wednesday night?" Or, "Hey, what are you doing Sunday night?" I'm like, "I got to go watch some kids. I got to go hang out and talk Jesus with these kids." And he was like, "Oh, all right," and that was it. He didn't ask any questions at all. And you know, I'm the type of person, you know, that I'm not going to force it on you, but I might ask you about it. Like, hey, you should come with me or come to church with me. But I never did ask him one time. I was just going to work with him to see how my relationship could affect him in some way. So eventually, over some times they go by, you know, you know, he knows that I play guitar, lead worship. He knows Brooke. He's never met her, but he knows about you too. I've talked about you so much, and Pastor Jeff and Angela. I've talked a lot, but he knows everyone's name by heart, but has no idea what they look like. But over the time of me chaperoning, helping, or whatever it is, he started like asking questions. And at first, it was he likes music. That's how me and him really connected, was over music.
Okay.
And then I started, you know, lead worship at Trinity, and I was like, you know, Sunday service was over, I'd come home and might hop on the game for a minute or two, and I'll talk to him. Hey, what songs did you play today? I'm like, oh man, we played King of My Heart, or we played Build My Life. And he's like, okay. And that would be it. You know, I wasn't going to dive into it. I was like, okay, there's something sparking in him. And then later on, just like, I just kept building that relationship with him. Not, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, drown him.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, a little bit of here, a little bit there, you know, and eventually I started posting stairwell covers of worship music and
Yes.
doing all these other things, going on retreats, and I'll put on my Instagram story or Facebook or something. And then one day I come home from a retreat. I think it was my first time going on a retreat with Brooke. We went on a ski retreat, and I came back, and he was like, tell me about it. I told him everything that happened, from us skiing to me falling down to we go back and eat food to here's our worship service, the message and everything. He's like, man, that's so cool. And he hasn't had an opportunity yet, but I eventually popped the question to him. I was like, dude, you come down to Georgia, would you go to church with me? Yeah. Okay. That was it. I didn't ask any more after that, but
yeah.
It's just crazy how, like, for really anyone who listens to this, it's just, you never know what kind of impact you have on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know just how you being yourself, opening up just a tad bit, just to show what your faith looks like to, it might be so big to you, but him or her, whoever it is, it can just be a little glimpse of it can affect that person in the biggest way. And next thing you know, they're walking through that door with you. And then before you know it, you don't even have to be there anymore, So it's just be yourself, and you never know what's going to happen.
Amen, man. That's so good. That's a good word, John Boy. All right, so we are up against time. So I end every episode with the same question. The name of the podcast is the Keep It Simple Podcast, and it's the only real structure, I guess, that we have to this thing. So, Johnny Bridges, how do you keep it simple?
Honestly, what I probably just said, just be myself. I wake up and I take something with me that you showed me a long time ago. I have to have a cup of just straight black coffee, and then I go to work, or I might have it at work. But drinking black coffee and just being myself, that's the easiest way of saying it.
You can't go wrong, dude. You can't go wrong. Be authentic and drink good hot black coffee.
There we go.
Awesome. John Boy, thank you so much. I'm sure this is going to get listened to over and over again. Like I say, I know you're busy. You always go and go and go, and gracious sakes you go. Thank you for carving out some time. Thank you so much just for who you are and how you are, man. You bless me. You give me incredible hope. And I will see you, I guess. Are you chaperoning the ski trip February?
I'll be there.
Boom! I'll be there. So I'll get to see you at a month or so, I guess. We'll be together, dude.
We'll be
awesome.
There up in West Virginia.
All right. See you soon. I love you.
Love you too, Ben.
All right. See ya.